He left me at the altar with a note that said, "Sorry, double quotes, ... It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life." I could feel the butterflies in my stomach, and for a second, everything seemed perfect. I was about to walk down the aisle. I was about to say I do to the man I thought I would spend forever with, but as I stood there, in my dress, ready to walk out, I found a note. A small, folded piece of paper sitting on the chair, just beside the flowers I had so carefully picked. It was from Mark. It simply said, "Sorry." My heart stopped. The world froze. People started to murmur. I didn't know what to think. What was going on? Why was he sending me a note? Where was he? There was no way this was real. This was a mistake. This couldn't be happening. But there it was. The words, the emptiness in the note, and the realization that he wasn't there. I felt my knees weaken, my stomach twist. In front of everyone. In front of all of our families and friends. I just stood there, holding the note in my hands, feeling the weight of it sink in deeper and deeper. I couldn't breathe. I kept looking at the note. It wasn't making sense. What did it mean? Why wasn't he here? Why wasn't he standing beside me, like he was supposed to? My heart raced. I felt hot all over. Confusion flooded my mind, but it was quickly replaced with anger. What was I supposed to do now? I didn't understand. How could he leave me like this? How could he not even be here to explain himself? I felt embarrassed. I felt humiliated. Everyone was looking at me, and I didn't know what to say. I wanted to scream at him, but I didn't even know where to direct my anger. My mind was spinning. I kept asking myself, what did I do wrong? Was I not enough? Why am I standing here alone? My emotions were like a whirlwind. 1 minute, I wanted to cry, and the next, I wanted to throw the note at his face. If I could only find him. I didn't even know what to feel anymore. It was like my whole life had just turned upside down in an instant. I wanted to believe it wasn't real, but it was. And it was happening to me. The room around me was a blur. I could hear voices, hushed whispers, people shifting in their seats, but all I could focus on was the note in my hand. I stared at it, unable to let go, but unable to understand it. My mind was racing. I kept asking myself, how did we get here? How did this happen? Was there something I missed? Was there a sign I didn't see? I kept replaying every moment with him in my head, from the first time we met to the plans we made for the future. Everything seemed so perfect, so right. And now, here I was, with a note that said nothing but sorry. I thought about the way he used to hold me, the way he used to make promises about the life we'd build together. Was that all a lie? Was I just another chapter in his story that he decided to close without any explanation? How could I have been so blind? All these questions kept swirling around in my head. My heart felt heavy. I just didn't know where to go from here. I felt like I was drowning in my own emotions. On one hand, I wanted answers. I wanted him to come back and explain, to look me in the eye and say something, anything, so I could understand why this happened. On the other hand, I was terrified of what I might hear. What if he didn't love me anymore? What if I wasn't enough? What if he just didn't care? There was a part of me that wanted to run. Run away from everyone, away from the embarrassment, away from the pain. I didn't want to face anyone, especially not him. But at the same time, I felt this pull. Should I fight for answers? Should I search for him and demand the truth? Or should I let it go, let him go, and accept that it was over? I couldn't make up my mind. I was paralyzed. How could he do this to me? And why did it feel like I was the one who had to fix it? He left me here, at the altar, with a note, and now, I was the one left to pick up the pieces. Everything changed when I read that note. Everything. It wasn't just a moment of shock. It was the moment my life turned upside down. The moment I realized everything I thought I knew about my relationship with Mark was a lie. Or at least, that's how it felt. I thought we were building something real. I thought we were building a future. We'd talked about our dreams, our goals. We were supposed to be partners, equal in every way. But now, I had this note. Just a small, empty apology. It wasn't just the words that cut through me, it was the absence of everything else. No explanation, no goodbye, no nothing. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the note at someone, at everyone. I wanted them to understand what it felt like to be left alone like this. But I couldn't even make sense of it myself. How did I get here? How did I let myself get here? I kept asking myself if I missed something. Had I ignored the signs? Were there cracks in our relationship that I refused to see? Had I been so caught up in my own idea of how things should be that I ignored the reality of what was happening? It was the first time I questioned everything about myself and our relationship. I felt betrayed, yes, but more than that, I felt like I had lost a part of myself. Who was I without him? How could I have been so wrong about everything? I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't enough. It was as if this note, this one simple word, sorry, had stripped me of my worth, and I didn't know how to get it back. I remember the first time I met Mark. It felt like fate, like everything had led me to that moment. We met in college, and it was easy. He was kind, funny, and everything I needed at that time. We clicked, immediately, and I thought it was meant to be. Over the next couple of years, we became inseparable. Our relationship felt like a fairy tale, and it seemed like we were both on the same page about the future. We made plans, we talked about marriage, we dreamed about a life together. When he proposed, I said yes without hesitation. It felt right. It was supposed to be the culmination of everything we had been building, everything we had dreamed of together, but now, I didn't even recognize the person who had left me. How could that person have been the same man I trusted with everything? I thought our connection was unbreakable. We had our disagreements, sure, but who doesn't? We knew how to navigate through rough patches. We knew how to communicate, how to laugh together, how to support each other. There was trust between us, there was love, and I honestly believed that was enough. Looking back, I wonder if I was the only one who thought it was enough. Was Mark really as committed as I was? Or was I just too blinded by my own feelings to see that he was already checked out, emotionally distant? I don't know when it started, or when I started noticing the distance. It wasn't immediate. It was subtle. Mark seemed more distant in the months before the wedding. He was preoccupied, distracted. I convinced myself it was just pre-wedding nerves. But now, I'm not so sure. There were moments when I felt like I was talking to a stranger. His attention wasn't on me the way it used to be. He'd leave the room, be on his phone for hours, and I couldn't get his focus. He'd say everything was fine, but I didn't believe him. The last few weeks before the wedding were the hardest. I could feel something slipping away, but I didn't know how to stop it. I just assumed we'd get through it. We always had before. But now it felt like I was chasing a ghost. There were things I didn't say, things we both didn't say, things that should have been said, but neither of us dared to speak up. There was tension, a silence that wasn't natural, a feeling of unease that hung in the air but went unaddressed. Maybe I was afraid to confront the truth. Maybe I didn't want to face the possibility that he might not feel the same way anymore. But we both ignored it. And now, I wonder, was that the mistake? Was I so afraid to ask, so afraid to hear the truth, that I allowed him to slip away without realizing? I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. It was subtle, at first, little moments, a lack of attention, a distance that wasn't there before. But it kept growing, little by little, until I couldn't ignore it anymore. There were days when he'd come home from work and wouldn't even look at me. He'd give me half-hearted smiles and vague answers, like I wasn't the person he used to be excited to see. I'd try to talk to him about it, but he'd always brush me off, saying he was just tired or stressed. I wanted to believe him, but my gut was telling me something else. I remember the night before the wedding, when he didn't even stay at the house. He said he had to get some things in order, but I had this deep gnawing feeling that I was losing him. It wasn't like we had huge fights or anything dramatic, but the silence between us was deafening. I kept thinking, maybe it's just wedding nerves. Maybe I'm overthinking it. But deep down, I knew it wasn't just nerves. It was something more. It was as if he was pulling away, bit by bit, and I didn't know how to stop it. I spent so many nights lying awake, wondering if I was imagining it. Was I reading too much into things? Or was this the beginning of the end? I wanted to believe in the love we'd built, but the cracks were there, and I couldn't ignore them anymore. I tried to ignore it. I tried to keep the dream alive, pretending that everything would be fine once the wedding was over, once the pressure was gone, but the distance kept growing. Every time I reached out, he pulled further away, and now, that note. Sorry. Was this what it was all leading to? It started small. Little things I couldn't put my finger on. A comment here or there. A glance. That didn't feel right. But slowly, I started noticing that Mark was getting more and more irritable. Every time I asked him how his day went, he'd sigh like he was annoyed that I even asked. The warmth he once had was replaced by coldness. I kept telling myself it was just the stress, just pre-wedding jitters, but deep down, I knew something had changed. There was a night we were supposed to be picking out the last few details for the wedding. I was excited, but Mark seemed completely uninterested. He didn't even care about the color scheme or the flowers. His mind was elsewhere, and I couldn't get his attention for more than a few seconds at a time. The more I tried to connect with him, the more distant he became. I tried to talk to him, tried to make him see that I was starting to feel like we were drifting apart. But every time I brought it up, he'd shut me down, saying I was overreacting, saying it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. I could feel it. The walls were going up, and I couldn't get through. Mark became more evasive. It started with little things like when he'd leave the house without telling me where he was going, or how long he'd be. He said it was work-related, but the excuses didn't add up. The more I asked, the more he clammed up. It was like he was hiding something, and I couldn't figure out what. I remember one night when I asked him about a text message he'd gotten. And he snapped at me. He said it was nothing, but I could see the panic in his eyes. Something was off. I tried to push it out of my mind, but the more I thought about it, the more it gnawed at me. I started questioning everything: his words, his actions, even the small gestures that used to mean so much. Were they real? Or was I just too blind to see that he'd already checked out? It wasn't just the lies. It was the way he made me feel like I was the problem, like I was imagining things. He made me doubt myself, made me question my own instincts. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. And it hurt like hell because I couldn't figure out why he was doing this. It wasn't just the lies. It was the way he twisted everything. The way he made me feel like I was the crazy one. Every time I brought up my concerns, he'd tell me I was overthinking, that I was being paranoid. He'd say I was too emotional, too needy. And the worst part, I started to believe him. I started to think that maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I was the one pushing him away. Maybe I had done something wrong. There were nights when I lay awake, crying, asking myself if I was too much. Was I too demanding? Was I suffocating him? I kept questioning myself, my worth. But the truth was, it wasn't me. It was him. It was the way he pulled away, the way he manipulated me into thinking that everything was my fault when it wasn't. The silence between us was deafening. Every time I reached out, he pulled further away. I tried everything: talking, texting, even just sitting in silence together, but it never felt like we were in the same place. The intimacy we once shared had evaporated, replaced by awkward moments and empty conversations. The emotional gap between us grew wider with each passing day. And then, that night, when I tried to confront him about it all, it hit me. He was already gone. He just hadn't left yet. His absence was more than just physical. It was emotional. And I didn't know how to close that gap. The man I loved was slipping away, and I couldn't reach him. I wanted to fix it, but every time I tried, he just shut me out. It felt like I was losing him, and I didn't even know why. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know. I had to hear the truth, even if it was going to break me. So, I asked him. I sat him down and asked him what was going on. Why are you so distant? Why are you avoiding me? I wanted to scream, but I just couldn't. The tears were there, but I fought them back. He didn't answer right away. His face was blank. His eyes were cold. It was like he was already checked out. He didn't look at me the way he used to. He didn't even seem to care. I don't know, Emma, I don't think I can do this anymore. His words hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. You don't think you can do this anymore? I asked, barely able to get the words out. I wanted him to say something else, anything else. But he didn't, and then it came out. The truth. Mark admitted that he had been unsure for a long time. He said he was scared. Scared of the commitment, scared of what marriage meant. But instead of facing me and talking about it, he left me a note. He left me at the altar. He couldn't even look me in the eye when he told me this. I felt like I was losing my mind. He wasn't even sorry. Not really. It was like he was already making excuses for himself. And all I could do was sit there, numb, listening to him tear everything apart. The truth was worse than I could have imagined. I had trusted him completely. He was my best friend, my partner, my everything. But in that moment, I realized that all of it had been a lie. He never really loved me the way I loved him. He never really believed in the future we were building. He left me there, in front of everyone, with nothing but a note that said sorry. I couldn't even cry. I just felt empty. Betrayed. Was like the floor had fallen out from under me, and I was free falling into nothingness. How could someone do this? How could someone I loved, someone I trusted, just throw it all away? I didn't know what to feel anymore. The anger was there, yes, but it was mixed with confusion, and pain, and shame. I couldn't understand how we went from being so close to this. How did it get so bad? How did I get so stupid? I felt betrayed, but I also felt broken. I couldn't figure out what to do with all these emotions. How could I ever look at him the same way again? How could I ever trust anyone after this? My heart was shattered. And I didn't even know where to begin picking up the pieces. I don't think I fully realized what had just happened until later. I mean, at that moment, I was too numb to process anything. I remember sitting there, alone, in the empty room, holding the note, and hearing the sound of people talking in hushed voices outside. I didn't want to face them. I didn't want to explain why I was sitting there by myself, staring at a note that broke everything. I couldn't breathe. I felt like the walls were closing in on me. The fallout was real. It hit hard in ways I didn't even expect. The guilt started creeping in. Was I too much? Was I too needy? Was I not the person he needed me to be? I kept asking myself those questions over and over again. I thought I had been good to him. I thought I had been supportive, patient, understanding. I tried to be everything he needed. But somewhere, somehow, I missed something. I didn't see the cracks forming. I didn't see him slipping away until it was too late, and then the regret. I should have noticed. I should have been stronger. I should have fought harder for us. But I didn't. I let him drift. I let him hide behind excuses. I didn't push him when I should have. I didn't ask the hard questions when I needed to. Instead, I just let him get away with everything. Now I was paying for it. Paying for my own ignorance, and that was just the beginning. The shame of what happened kept me up at night. I didn't want to face the people I loved. I didn't want to tell them what had happened. What was I supposed to say? How could I explain that my entire world had just been shattered, and I didn't know how to pick up the pieces? It felt like I'd let everyone down. I had this image of the perfect future, and now, I was just broken. The hardest part, though, was the loneliness. I had never felt more alone in my entire life. He wasn't just a partner to me, he was my best friend. And now, he was gone. Without a word, without even a real explanation. How was I supposed to move forward? How could I trust anyone again? In the days after the wedding, everything felt like a blur. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I couldn't think straight. I was just numb, going through the motions, but feeling like I was underwater. I tried to talk to my friends and family, but every time I spoke about what happened, it just didn't feel real. How could I explain to them that the man I thought I would marry had just left me at the altar, in front of everyone, that he couldn't even face me to tell me why? It was too much to wrap my head around. And the worst part, I kept blaming myself. What did I do wrong? Why wasn't I enough? It was like my entire sense of self had been shattered. I couldn't even look in the mirror without asking myself what was wrong with me. I couldn't let go of the idea that I wasn't good enough, that no matter how hard I tried, it wasn't enough for him. But slowly, something inside me began to change. It didn't happen all at once. It was gradual. I started to realize that Mark's decision wasn't about me. It wasn't my fault that he couldn't handle our relationship, that he couldn't communicate his fears. It wasn't about me not being enough. It was about him and his own inability to face the truth. His inability to be honest, to own up to his feelings. That realization, though painful, was a turning point. I could either keep wallowing in the guilt and pain, or I could start picking myself back up. The damage wasn't just emotional, it was all-encompassing. My relationships with friends and family were strained. They were concerned about me, of course, but they didn't know how to help. They kept asking what happened, and I didn't have the answers. I didn't know what happened, either. All I knew was that everything I thought I knew about myself, about love, had been ripped apart in a way that I didn't understand. I had to rebuild myself. I had to rebuild the pieces of me that Mark had taken with him when he left. And that was the hardest part. I had to confront the consequences of his betrayal, and I had to confront the fact that I was left alone to face the mess he left behind. But it was also a chance for me to grow, a chance for me to rediscover who I was without him. It wasn't easy. I stumbled. I questioned myself. But I also started to realize that I had strength I didn't know I had. Moving forward was slow, so slow. I didn't expect it to be easy. But there were days when I didn't know how I was going to get through it. There were days when I didn't want to get out of bed, when I wanted to just shut the world out. But somehow, I did it. Little by little, I started rebuilding. I started going back to the things I loved. I picked up old hobbies. I spent more time with friends, even though it was hard at first. I started to learn how to be okay on my own. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't painless, but it was progress. The hardest part was letting go of the life I thought I was going to have with Mark. I had to mourn that life, that future. It wasn't going to happen. And as painful as it was to accept, it was also liberating. I had to accept that he wasn't the person I thought he was. I had to accept that it wasn't meant to be. The final step, I think, was acceptance. It wasn't about forgiving him. It was about forgiving myself. I had to accept that it wasn't my fault. I had to let go of the anger, the hurt, and the confusion. Letting go didn't mean I forgot what happened, but it meant I could finally take a step forward. It meant I wasn't going to let his actions define me anymore. I didn't need Mark to be whole. I didn't need him to complete me. I could find that strength within myself. And as I began to accept what happened, I felt lighter. I felt free. When I look back on everything, I realize how much I've changed. The person who stood at that altar, devastated and lost, is not the same person I am now. I've learned so much about myself through all of this. I've learned that I am stronger than I ever thought I could be. That even when everything falls apart, I can rebuild. I used to think that my happiness was tied to someone else. That if I wasn't in a relationship, if I didn't have Mark by my side, I wasn't enough. But that's not true. I am enough on my own. I have my own worth, my own value, and I don't need someone else to define that for me. The pain of the betrayal was deep, but it taught me lessons I would never have learned otherwise. I've learned how to trust myself again. I've learned that I am worthy of love that is honest, that is real. I've learned to stop settling for less than I deserve. Looking back on everything, I can say that this experience has changed me. It wasn't easy, it wasn't painless, but in the end, it taught me the value of trust, self-respect, and personal growth. Betrayal is never easy to accept, and it takes time to heal, but you can heal. You can learn from it, grow from it, and eventually, you can forgive not the person who hurt you, but yourself. You'll learn to accept the things that are beyond your control. And realize that the only thing that truly defines you is how you pick yourself up when you're broken. If you're going through something like this, I want you to know that it gets better. You're stronger than you think. Don't let someone's betrayal make you feel like you're not enough, because you are. And if you've ever been left behind, betrayed by someone you trusted, I encourage you to share your story. Let's lift each other up. No one should have to go through this alone. If you've connected with my story, make sure to subscribe to my channel for more. You're not alone in this journey, and together, we can keep moving forward.